All right, good morning, everybody. Let's finish or continue our cradle-to-grave trade coverage. We're tracking basically four stocks right now, VRX being one of them. If we take a look here at VRX, yesterday there was some good news for the company. It got its big push up. Now, I had originally targeted this little area right here as a place to take profits. So I started taking profits into that area, and then we actually got an even larger bump up, and I took a little bit more up here towards the end of the day. It is coming after this swing point high, going to break that swing point high, and once it gets over it, right, the target then becomes this top. Now, it's not, I doubt very seriously we're going to go straight up to that area, but we did get a good push in volume, right, into what we were coming into. So that tells me that, the buyers are willing to buy at higher and higher price. They got over an area I didn't think they would, and so that tells me that, we can go higher. So, this trade, for me at least, it looks like it's going to last a little bit longer than I expected, because it's behaving better than I expected in terms of the way it's set up. If I look at an intraday chart, and I'll just pull over a little small intraday chart here, and pull this one back, you can see the kind of action that's taking place here. This spike up, right, couldn't get going all day the prior day, did get the gap up and held though, and that was a pretty good percentage. It was up about 6-7%. And then yesterday the news started to flow in that a deal was going to get done on the debt. That did happen right at the end of the day yesterday after hours. And then you got a lot of a chatter about the financials not having, and that was part of what jumped this to start with, not having to be restated. There's been a big question about whether financials are going to have to be restated. They put together a group of investors to look over their books and decided they didn't need to be restated. So that positive news finally coming in for this stock and moving it. Today we've actually got some other things happening today that look pretty promising. In the currencies, you've got fast moves in the currencies. I think that's going to put a lot of instability into the markets again. As a result, gold is probably going to benefit. This morning, gold is already up as I'm doing this, hour and a half before the market opens. Gold is already up about 1%. So gold is, still trading in this big range, and so there's really not, a lot to say for it. You kind of have two ranges. You have the top range, and up underneath that you have another potential one at the bottom. It's traded in the lower half, the lower range, the upper half of the lower range. What it's going to try to do today is get back up in the top range again. If it can stay up in the top range, eventually this thing is going to probably continue the breakout. So this isn't a time that you get a position, you hold it, you try to add cheaper if it wants to come down there, and you simply wait it out while it consolidates and eventually makes its break higher. GDX looking even better. The gold stocks benefiting from the fact that they're actually more oversold than we see in the gold itself. They typically, if you look at the curves between these, and I'll just kind of draw it out, if gold goes down something like this, right, the miners themselves go down something like that. They take a bigger hit. So when gold finally turns, right, the miners have a lot more ground to break up, and they move in a steeper directional move, and that's kind of what you're seeing here. When you see that consolidation I just showed you on gold itself, here in the miners, it's a different consolidation. It's up higher, and it's not giving hardly any of it back. You don't even see it trying to trade in that lower range. And so the miners are going to try to go up here and test the top again today, probably. Finally, if we move to our KMI, still haven't added to this. Keep looking at it, keep watching, keep waiting. Oil got a big pump up yesterday, and this got a decent spike as a result of it. But it really isn't behaving anything different than what we've seen, and I don't see any reason to chase these prices. You've got this, this upper range still in effect, right? And below it, you have a range down here. And those ranges still remain in effect, and nothing's happened. We're waiting for price to retrace back down into this range. My expectation is if it breaks these swing point lows, right, you're going to get a faster move down, and then that's going to allow you to get a better entry setup, and that's what I'm waiting on, and hopefully you're still waiting on it as well. If I bring over the weekly chart, I just want to show you, the target is eventually up here. It's just going to take a while to get there because this market, the gold market, for example, commodities in general, most of them have actually started to bottom, or at least are attempting to, gold in particular. If you look at these charts in oil, for example, oil has not bottomed yet. We don't know that it's bottomed. Is it putting in a bottom? It looks like it, but we don't know that until it happens. So, the retrace trade here is back into the bottom of this big bar. That price point is, let's get the number on it, 1656. Right, so going back to the daily chart, 1656 is down in this range, and that's what we're waiting on to add again. So that's the 4 trades that we have on. They're still looking pretty good. I just have to keep the trades lively here, and eventually we'll get a bigger move in some of these trades that we're working. Folks, it's all about staking out a position, staying with the trend, have the wind at your back, and that's what we have in the gold stocks. That's what we have in that KMI stock probably, and eventually that's going to work to your advantage. Now the other type of trade you can make, is that trade like we made on the VRX, and that is that you're waiting for an opportunity to catch a trade that has been totally oversold, right? And then bottom feed on that oversold position when you get a setup that lets you. And that setup, just as a reminder, if I can get it back in here, whoops, got it misspelled. Let me just pull the chart up this other way. That setup again was this low being tested, right? This low being tested here, here, and then one more time there. Couldn't break it down. Big breakout the other way. That's it for today. Thanks. See you.